Recently, I dropped my first video on my experience playing the first two GTA games for the first time. I'll post a pop-up or whatever it's called, I don't know. And today, I'm gonna talk about my experience playing GTA 3, also for the first time. Released in 2001, Grand Theft Auto 3 is the first 3D game in a series. But I played the remastered version or the remake or whatever they call it now, and to my surprise, it wasn't as bad of a remastered as I would have expected. But also I felt disappointed that they didn't try to modernize it a bit more to look similar to GTA 5. But, that's just an opinion. You would think with the amount of money they make off of the online mode in GTA 5, they would have allocated some resources to do a modernized version like Square Enix did with the Final Fantasy games. But I guess it would have been hard to make as much profits as GTA 5 did without having online, but I digress. Let's go back to GTA 3. GTA 3 shifted from the bird's eye view of the first few installments to a 3D world view in a third-person perspective. This shift was a welcome sight for me, since the modern 3D games are what I'm accustomed to playing, and there's no wonky camera shifting when I'm driving. So, that's a net positive. This transition was more than a graphical upgrade. It shifted what people thought a Grand Theft Auto game could be at the time, by moving away from the gamey elements like clearing levels and scoring points, towards an immersive world where players could feel like they're living in. The shift to 3D required a fundamental change in the world building. According to art director Aaron Garbett, the transition required a world that was far more detailed, allowing the player to see into the distance while interacting with the environment up close and personal. What amazed me was that the world felt alive for a 2001 game, but then again it was remastered. Either way, the NPCs populated the city by walking around, driving cars, and randomly shooting at you while the police ignored them. But the moment you try to do something back, all of a sudden the police want to get active. Double standards. And there was somehow also a weather system that included rain, fog, and lightning, along with day and night cycles. I'm trying to imagine what kind of mind-blowing experience that would have been for people back then, since that's something that's the norm in games like this these days. And the closest I can get to that feeling of mind-blowing is experiencing a AAA that is good and not full of bugs. So yeah, I've never had that experience. Can't relate. Life was simpler back then. The game is set in Liberty City, a fictional metropolis loosely based on New York City, while incorporating elements of Chicago and Philadelphia, and is divided into 3 distinct islands with their own unique identities: Portland, Staten Island, and Shoreside Val. I've actually just read out Staten Island for the first time. That sounds very similar to Staten Island. Weird. Portland, the first island accessed by the player, is the industrial sector, characterized by docks, a red light district, warehouses, and factories. Staten Island serves as the downtown commercial district, with skyscrapers and high-end retail, while Shoreside Val acts as the suburban residential area. The city was designed not as a flat map, but as a living, breathing organism, with elevation, hills, and a variety of public transportation options, including subways and elevated trains. You start out playing the game as Claude, a silent criminal who is always mewing. Some would say a look maxer, who is betrayed by his girlfriend, Catalina, during a bank heist at the beginning of the story. Or, hear me out, it could be because he wouldn't talk to her. As we all know, the foundation of a healthy relationship is communication. And as we can tell, Claude's communication was his weakest Asset. Just food for thought. Betrayed and left for dead, Claude escapes custody after an attack on his transport van and begins working his way through Liberty City's criminal organizations. Despite what I said before, Claude's lack of dialogue is one of the game's most iconic and debated features. I just assumed that it wasn't in the budget to have a voice actor, but then I realized that everyone else is pretty much voice acted, so it was a weird choice, but apparently Rockstar Games explained that keeping the protagonist silent was a strategic decision to help players identify with the character by projecting their own personality onto him, which I really didn't have much of an issue with, to be honest. But it also made him not as memorable at all compared to the characters that follow. By having him be silent as a character, it makes him feel like a passenger in the world. Kinda like players. By removing him, it feels like there would be no change to anything. Either way, my biggest criticism of the first GTA games was the lack of coherent story. And when I first started GTA 3, it felt like the same issues would arise. But as you progress, the story started to branch out more, unlike the loose, impersonal mission structure of GTA 2. GTA 3 was more character-driven, with an interwoven story. You start out in Portland, an industrial zone based on Brooklyn and Queens, working for the mafia families doing low-level jobs until you prove your worth, which leads to you trying to take out the Triads and the Colombian cartel. After that, you transition into working with the Yakuza, doing even more extreme jobs like attempting to free a high-ranking Yakuza member from jail. All to just turn around and become the pawn of a billionaire and start a gang war between the Yakuzas and the Colombian cartel, eventually having all the storylines converge in an epic 2000s action movie ending with helicopters, guns, and explosions. All in all, it's a pretty simple experience. Complete the missions and progress the story. Though there are some quality of life stuff you can see that the game was missing. Or it would be more fitting to say that at the time there are some features that no one would have thought of that are the norm in modern day games. Unlike modern open world titles that guide the player with an abundance of waypoints, dynamic GPS lines, and detailed in-game menus. Also, remember, I played the remastered version of the game, so I don't know what wasn't there before, but even this version lacked some modern quality of life features. It took me forever to figure out how to know what quests I'm doing, because there was no quest section. It was in something like the brief, and then I would have to read the briefs to see what I had to do. Then the GPS system would sometimes work, and other times it wouldn't. Oh, and the police in this game is actually busted. It took me an hour to beat the bank job quest because I was so accustomed to GTA 5, where I could just outdrive the cops or hide and they wouldn't find me. I learned the hard way that no matter what I did, the cops would always spawn near me, until I was reminded about a staple feature I had forgotten about, and that's repainting your car, which is the ultimate cheat code for getting rid of wanted stars. But I just hate how you can hide from the view of the police and they would still find you. Oh, and the combat in this game is actually dumpster fire. It is so clunky and disgusting. I played with a controller and the aim assist was doing all the work. I just had to shoot in the vicinity and the bullet would just bend to the target. However, in a crowded area, it was GG's. The aim assist would just take control and start doing its own thing. I really dreaded doing any mission that required me to shoot, and that was a lot of missions I dreaded. And speaking of missions I dreaded, the airport mission with the plane is one that I hate the most. I don't know if it was because I was playing the remastered version of the game, but every shot I made with the rocket launcher would miss no matter what I did. it was actually a miserable experience that had to be cheesed. On the flip side, that's really how games would feel back in the day. There would be a mission you couldn't figure out how to complete, so you would have to go to school and have a serious discussion with your friends and see what you all come up with. Or at least that's how I imagine it would have been. I eventually checked online to see how others beat the mission and just copied that. There are just some things about this game that are fundamentally frustrating. For example, missions like Espresso to Go, where you're tasked with destroying 9 coffee stalls across all 3 islands. You would have to find out where all the stalls are located, whilst also memorizing where the stalls are, because there's no indication on the map of their locations until you're in close proximity. And to add to the issue, it was a time-limited mission, so it took me several tries to eventually complete it. It's honestly so impressive that I managed to remaster the game, but couldn't be bothered to just add a few quality of life changes to make the game better without changing anything important. And since GTA is a driving game at its core, there's one important factor that adds to the immersion of the world, which I think most games that try to copy GTA tend to overlook, and that's the radio. Unfortunately, I didn't play the original GTA 3, so I don't know if the remastered radio was similar to the original due to copyright stuff and whatever legalese, but the remastered radio still managed to help immerse me in the world. Oh, and apparently there were some changes in GTA 3 that were made after the 9/11 attacks in New York City, which is something I never would have known about. Changes like to the police cars, to the vans, and also there was a mission that involved terrorists and a non-interactive jumbo jet that appeared to fly through buildings. Honestly, this sounds very coincidental. Maybe it could just be Rockstar using word of mouth to market their game. I don't know. It seems very coincidental. In the end, the clunky controls, the lack of guidance, the horrible shooting weren't just flaws. They were the foundation of a series that still exists to this day. GTA 3 didn't just change its own series, it changed how games were made. It proved that a game could be a world. And even today, you can still see the influence it had on gaming. But what do you think? Have you experienced this game when it first came out? Like, what was it like compared to even the remastered? And as you can guess, I'm probably gonna do a video on Vice City next. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.